Interesting questions about Meghan's alleged future in.
What is this? What is happening? What we have here is a complete and utter disaster. Are we going for Star Wars? Because I don't like it. Drama and blankie chic? Maybe that's the direction we're going. What is this nonsense? What is happening? What is this face? Look at her sucking in her cheeks all night long. Look at her do it.
All that royal charm and Hollywood hype, and Paris responded with the ultimate eye roll.
That maybe helps bring attention to this new line. Now, I would say that it was profoundly negative, but when you speak about other royals, I actually looked this up because somebody asked about it, and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has
mark of being graceful, and she's not getting anywhere close. It's sad, it's weird, it's gross. The duck facing alone, being over 40 years old, is pathetic. I can't take it. I can't even take myself seriously trying to suck on my cheek.
She didn't glide into Paris Fashion Week so much as materialize. Heels precise, hair immaculate, dress engineered to catch every camera's favorite angle. For a split second, it felt like the triumphant return her supporters have been forecasting for years. The Duchess stepping back into the arena, the room pausing to take her in. Flashes crackled, heads tilted.
They do have a royal representative in the lovely Beatrice Borromeo, who is married into the Monaco royal family and is also an aristocrat from Italy. So they didn't really need Meghan. Chanel has Charlotte.
Editors leaned forward. And then, almost imperceptibly at first, the temperature dropped. Backstage was supposed to hum. Dryers roaring, brushes flicking, assistants negotiating last-second miracles. Instead, people moved like they were conserving sound. Stylists traded small looks that said more than sentences. Makeup artists adjusted already perfect eyeliner. PR hands found elaborate reasons to stare intently at clipboards. She tried the polite glide, smile, nod, a few cordial words, but the cadence felt practiced, like dialogue learned the night before. Confidence was there, but it had edges. Poise arrived with an outline. Proximity is its own currency in high fashion. Being photographed near the right people is a resume line, a handshake, a password whispered through velvet rope. Yet the space around her seemed to hold, gentle, courteous, and very intentionally intact. A few seats over became the default range. The whispers weren't about tailoring or hemlines at first. They were about choreography. Who had invited whom? Was this a carefully plotted alliance or a spontaneous cameo? Depending on whom you asked, the answers adjusted mid-sentence on social feeds and in green rooms. One detail floated higher than the rest. Even as photos looked glossy, the energy didn't quite land. Photographers who usually shoot first and justify later hesitated just a beat longer, angling from respectable distances rather than elbowing to the front. It wasn't snubs so much as caution, the difference between enthusiasm and acknowledgement. What should have been a clean backstage narrative, Duchess dazzles, Paris swoons, fractured into competing stories. Her team's version leaned toward surprise and serendipity. Insiders countered with something cooler, tolerated, not faded. Borrowed pieces rather than bespoke, sample rack perfection that looked flawless under strobes but read, to trained eyes, like armor chosen in a hurry. It wasn't the disastrous misfire some hoped for, nor the unassailable triumph her fans imagined. It was more complicated, and complication never stays backstage for long. That's the other Paris truth. Authenticity isn't a slogan here, it's a native language. The city recognizes the difference between inhabiting an image and rehearsing one. And as the night unfolded, tiny tells added up. An adjusted strap that should have been invisible, a half-second pause before a flash, a smile that flickered then steadied. None of it damning on its own. Together, it read like a room taking notes. By the time the show emptied into black cars and streetlights, the couture was no longer the headline. The discourse had drifted from silhouettes and fabric pairings to presence. Was the aura earned or assembled? Was this the beginning of a deeper relationship with the house, or a strategically photogenic detour? People disagreed loudly, which meant the story was alive and shifting. Then came the drive. Paris holds certain places like living memory, and the Pont de l'Alma tunnel is one of them. For many, it is not a route but a symbol, grief distilled into concrete and light. When videos surfaced of her passing through after the show, conversation flared into something hotter. Some shrugged it off as coincidence. Others, steeped in royal history and media narratives, found the optics jarring. In a city fluent in subtext, the moment felt bigger than traffic flow. Intent is unknowable. Perception is not. And perception rushed in to fill the gap. Online, the clip mutated into 1,000 edits. Commentators stitched red carpet images to archival headlines. Threads debated whether homage and provocation can sometimes look unnervingly alike. The gentler take called it tone-deaf. The harsher take called it calculated. Her defenders asked why a route should be a referendum. Her critics asked why routes ever need to become stories. What was meant to be a coda became the chorus. Layered onto the discourse were older arguments about brand and values. Paris remembers ad campaigns and statements. It remembers which causes people champion and which doors they walk through. When activism and affiliation sit side by side, audiences compare them, fairly or not. That's the ecosystem here. Consistency is couture, and inconsistency shows seams. Meanwhile, the fashion world readout from the week settled into a subtler, more surgical verdict. Yes, the cameras came. Yes, the posts performed. But influence is not measured in impressions alone. It's measured in proximity, invitations, and the quiet, private texts that follow. Who reaches out after, who offers fittings, who says, "Come back tomorrow." That's the pulse check. The unofficial consensus backstage was polite but chilly. If the front row was glitter, the green room was ice water. None of this means the night was a failure. It means the city made up its mind for now, and Paris changes its mind rarely, and for reasons. The Duchess remained flawlessly composed through the undertow, chin high, angles precise, choreography intact. She can wear scrutiny like a silhouette, and that is a skill. But the room wanted something less lacquered, some friction, some unguarded breath, anything to suggest the person arrived before the picture. As the days passed, the story hardened into a parable. Sympathy, the force that once lifted her above the brawl, had thinned. The lens turned evaluative, less what has she endured, and more, what is she choosing? The borrowed versus bespoke debate became a metaphor. The question of invitation became shorthand for standing. The tunnel became a Rorschach that said as much about the viewer as the viewed. In another city, this might have blown over in 24 hours. In Paris, the aftertaste lingers and people keep tasting. There were Kinder reads. Some argued she did exactly what modern celebrity demands: appear where the zeitgeist lives on the frame, take the oxygen others leave. They noted that attention is attention, and in a marketplace this crowded, silence is the only real defeat. But even those sympathetic takes stumbled over the central snag. Attention that doesn't convert into belonging eventually curdles. The room must want you there, not just accept that you came. And belonging here is an art of contradictions. Effort that looks effortless, choreography that hides its counts, importance that doesn't need to announce itself. When you have it, people drift closer without realizing they moved. When you don't, the empty inch at your elbow becomes a canyon on camera. Maybe that's why the most telling images from the week weren't the posed portraits, but the wide shots. Beautiful dress, impeccable posture, a halo of space that shouldn't exist at an event famous for crowding. In those frames, the story writes itself without captions. If influence is gravity, the field was weaker than the photos suggested. None of this closes a chapter. Fashion loves a second act, and Paris is generous to the genuinely recalibrated. If she returns with less script and more skin in the game, with partnerships that feel reciprocal rather than opportunistic, with clothes that look lived in rather than borrowed, with choices that harmonize with causes, this same room can reverse itself with startling speed. It has done so for others. It could do so again, but that night the math didn't balance. The narrative asked for authenticity. The delivery leaned toward performance. The city asked for presence. The images answered with pose. The audience was ready to be convinced. The moment tried to be managed. And when management shows, magic goes. The week ended not with a coronation but with a question. In a place where style is vocabulary and sincerity is syntax, can an image-forward persona learn to speak fluently enough to be understood without a translator? If the answer becomes yes, the doors that stayed politely half-closed will swing wide and stay that way. If the answer remains maybe, the velvet rope will keep doing what it does best, letting you in just far enough to see everything you haven't quite earned. For now, the record is simple and a little cruel. The cameras cooperated. The headlines obliged. The city withheld. And somewhere between the pit of the runway and the quiet inside a car, the difference between arriving and belonging made itself painfully, exquisitely clear.